Welcome to the Grief Pod with Venetia Quick. This is a weekly podcast which looks at every aspect of something which has or will at some point affect us all. And that is grief. Whether you've lost a loved one or about to lose someone you know, or perhaps you're simply trying to help someone navigate their grief and don't know where to start or what to say, then perhaps this is the podcast for you. Each week I'll be bringing you different stories and experiences of loss, love, hope and at times humour. Jenny Eastwood has experienced multiple family bereavements in very quick succession, losing both her mum and her dad less than 4 years apart, as well as her cousin Julianne. At only 29 years old, Jenny joins me this week to tell me how she's getting through such tremendous loss in such quick succession and at such a young age as well, and how this loss has affected her. And perhaps, I suppose, Jenny, it's just been a whirlwind, hasn't it?
It definitely has. It's just been like no grief to tremendous amount of loss and grief.
Because until your mum passed away, you hadn't really...
Well, I lost my nanny a couple of months beforehand, but I feel like I hadn't actually experienced a full, like I've only 10 months, and then my mum passed away, so.
And your mum, because you lost your dad, Edmund, in 2024.
Yeah.
Julianne, your cousin, well, your dad's cousin, but like you were very close to her, in 2023.
Sure, yeah.
And then your mum, Donna, in 2021.
And then my nanny was 2020, so yeah.
Like you can't even, that's just...
Yeah.
Tell me about your mum, Donna, and the sort of relationship you had, the two of you.
I don't even know where to start. We were best friends, like literally best of friends. She was literally my right arm. Anyone you would ask would say like we were inseparable, literally. Everything we did together. We even were working together at one point in the hotel that she worked in for 30 years, and I was in the bar. She actually got me the job, and yeah, just completely inseparable. So when I lost her, it was like literally like best friend gone off the face of the earth, just like that. And it was like, what do I do with myself?
Yeah,
you know,
because you've one brother, who's older than you.
My brother Tony.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your mum was diagnosed with mouth cancer.
She was in 2018.
In 2018.
Yeah.
How did that come about? What are the presentations?
So she just kept complaining of her mouth. So we thought like it could have been her teeth, like dental kind of
being
working
sore
something
or
like that. Yeah, we weren't too sure, and she was complaining about her mouth. And then I seen like a red kind of rash showing up on the side of her mouth, like roaring red. And I was kind of like, this doesn't look like, dental kind of issues. And she went in. My mum wasn't one for hospitals and doctors. She absolutely hated them. She would avoid them at all costs, similar to me, to be honest. And when she went in to get scans and stuff done, they were noticing, right, okay, like, something's not right here. Now, we didn't think anything of it, like cancer or like that. Like that was the last thing on any of our minds. They'd sent her to get like all teeth taken out in the dental hospital, thinking like that maybe it could have been a bigger issue there. Nothing like that. And then they basically I wasn't actually there that day. My brother went in with her. They brought us in that day and basically just told her, look, it was mouth cancer. And like we hadn't experienced that and so close. Obviously my nanny, she passed a couple of months before from cancer as well, but like we didn't even think, I didn't know there was a such thing as mouth cancer. I didn't even like throat, fair enough, but mouth, I was like, surely not. Like,
because it is something just only recently really you see maybe a few more stories about, but it's not one of the cancers that's overly flagged.
100%. And we were all just completely like in shock, but they did say like, radiation and stuff, it will work, and like because it's the type of cancer that if you get the radiation quick enough, and they were, in their eyes, they caught it quick enough.
And so did they say how she would have got it, or just...
They didn't. No, my mum was a big smoker. She was a big smoker. So we kind of put it down to that. Maybe that didn't help. But like my mum was, she kept saying it was all she had. Do you know what I mean? With the smokes, like there's nothing you can do there. But they were saying like it could have been anything. Do you know what I mean? It could have just been even if she wasn't smoking, you know, it could have been.
Well, we should just also say nobody deserves
No,
cancer.
definitely not. And
irrespective
that's
of,
one thing I didn't really appreciate, I suppose, when people kept saying, "Oh, like, you know, the smoke, the smokes," and it's like, well, it could have happened to anybody, you know.
Yeah.
So, it was just, to be honest, like, there's a lot of brain fog in that kind of era of my life. I was very, I suppose, sheltered from it quite a bit.
Very young. You're still very young.
I was only, what was I when my mum was diagnosed first? I think I was only about 21, 22.
Yeah.
No, I would have been only 21. I would have been only turned 21. So my brother, because there's 11 years between me and my brother, so he was kind of nearly overtook it between him and my dad, and I was kind of just nearly sheltered to it'll be okay, it's fine, she'll be grand. Obviously, when I heard the word cancer, it was a huge ordeal. You hear the word cancer and you're thinking, you know, worst case scenario, but then the doctor's like, no, radiation will be okay. And she did radiation for, I think it was back to back for nearly 8 weeks, every day.
Every day.
It was 5 days a week. I think she only got the weekends, if I remember correctly, off. And like every day we'd be in there.
And was she allowed to go home in that time?
Yeah, so they brought her in, say, Monday to Friday, we'd be in there for like a couple of hours of a day, and then she'd go home to rest and then back in the next day. But yeah, it was fairly intense for someone that, as well, that wasn't, she was never really sick up to this. Do you know what I mean? Like, she was kind of, like I said, she wouldn't go into hospitals or doctors. She'd obviously go if she had to, do you know what I mean? But she wasn't really one where my dad would have been kind of in and out for years previous to when he got properly sick.
Yeah.
So when you heard my dad was in hospital, it was kind of different. That sounds really bad, but you know what I mean?
No,
like,
but that was part of his life, I suppose. Whereas with your mum, it just wasn't.
Completely different, you know.
So she did the radiation.
Yeah.
And then that seemed to work.
Yeah.
And then COVID.
Yeah, so 2019, it would have been, radiation would have started in 2019. So for the year of 2019, then they were saying she was in remission and it was gone. We were delighted. Then COVID hit 2020 and obviously everything shut down. And we were at home, like the two of us couldn't even work in the hotel because my mum was actually working for a couple of hours at a time just for sanity, I suppose, you know, for her head. After she was put through remission and everything else, and doctors gave it a go ahead to go back part-time. So when we came out of COVID, like, we didn't know what it is, you know, and she wasn't really one for wanting to sit in the house much. She liked kind of her independence and going about. So I remember actually sitting where the day the restrictions came in and we were looking at her and I was like, how are we going to get through this? And she was like, we will. Yeah. And I was like stuck in the house, like, how are we going to do this, you know? But yeah, through COVID then, she actually enjoyed the time during COVID being at home, strangely enough. You know, we were kind of doing online shopping and like she was getting bits and pieces done with the house when the restrictions did kind of ease. And I didn't think we would get closer, but we actually got even more closer than what we were, which was
because a lot of people just couldn't stand each other.
Yeah, well, that's what I did say to her. I was like, are we going to end up like, you know, arguing here? Like, what's going to happen, you know? But I didn't think we would get any more closer than what we actually did. And then it was coming to the end of 2020, if I remember correctly, and she wasn't feeling 100%. But again, we just took it as like, you know, she's not well or whatever. You know, we didn't think getting too crazy about it. And then the new year of 2021, for the first few weeks and months, then we were kind of saying, no, she doesn't look right. And it was actually a friend of mine that popped up after the COVID restrictions had eased, and they'd seen her for the first time in nearly a year, I'd say. And they had known, like, we'd all worked in the hotel together, so they had known my mum for quite a long time, and they were like, no, like, I'm not being scare you, but
you see, I think as well, when you're spending so much time with somebody or whatever, you don't really notice the changes.
Definitely not. Like, I didn't. They were saying like, oh, you know, she'd lost a lot of weight. Now I remember my dad and stuff saying that, but I just thought, no, like, I'm with her every day, I would have noticed, you know, but I genuinely just didn't see it. And maybe I was in denial now looking back as well. Like, I was just not wanting to see what other people maybe were seeing. And then she was complaining of her legs and stuff being really sore and kind of her whole body. So like, I was buying like massage chairs and like, you know, doing all this thinking it was like muscular pain. And it was actually one day she actually turned around to me and my brother and she was like, no, like, can you ring the hospital or like get me a scan, just something not right. And we were kind of like, okay, Mum's asking for scans, it's not. So then we rang the hospital and they were saying, look, because she's so high risk still, we can't bring her into the hospital. And that was the whole reason why they hadn't done the routine checkups for months and months and months. And my brother actually got on the phone, and like my brother wouldn't really lose the head, but he actually was like, listen, he was like, if she's asking for it, there's a major reason, there's something wrong. So they ended up sending her for like a private scan out in Blackrock then, where it was kind of isolated and stuff, where she wouldn't be around kind of people in the hospital. And that was about a week before, a week after, and we brought her in, and they came back out and they were like to us, yeah, like give the doctors a call in about 5 days and you'll get results over the phone. So we were thinking, okay, perfect. 5 days passed. I rang personally and was like, you know, can you give me the results of my mum's scans? And they were like, we can't give you any results over the phone. So I was going, okay, why would I be told to ring then, you know? And they were like, we're back to back, it'll be mid-May. So this was April. It'll be mid-May before we ever get to actually, you know.
So you had to wait, and she had to wait.
Well, we thought we had to wait. That was the thing. So when my mum heard mid-May, she was delighted, because she was like, if it was severe, you know, they'd want to be in straight away.
Is good news.
Exactly. She used to always say that. And then I think about a couple of days had passed, and we got a letter to the door basically saying on the following Friday we needed to go in to see the doctor. So I was kind of going, right, well, obviously they just want to see us face to face, give results or whatever, and it'll be fine. Went in anyways that following Friday. The Friday morning, she actually said to me, she sent me to the shop and she was like, can you just get me like toiletries and stuff? I have a funny feeling they're going to keep me in over the weekend just to keep an eye. And I was like, I don't think so, Mum. Like, I think it'll be the usual in, see the doctor, home, and we'll sort it. And she was like, no, I just have this. She was very like in tune with intuition and her gut feeling. She was very like strong on that. She was like, just in case. And I was like, right, okay. Went to the shop. So me and my brother went in and to the hospital, but they, caused the COVID restrictions, they wouldn't let two of us in. It was only one. So my brother was doing it most of the time if I was working and stuff. So I said, look, I'll take one for the team here and I'll go in with her and he could sit in the car. And I was like, if there's something wrong, like, I'll ring or whatever. And I remember her saying to me, again, very independent, no one ever wants to be pushed down in a wheelchair, but like she was very kind of, no, I can walk, I'm fine. Yeah. And this particular day she got out of the car and she was like, Jen, can you get me a wheelchair? And I was like, wow, what? And she was like, can you get me a wheelchair? And I was like, yeah, of course, no problem. Got her the wheelchair. And she was in great spirits going all the way down to the clinic, because she was used to the doctors and nurses in there. Like, it was ENT and Beaumont, like, and they were all lovely. We were sitting there anyway and we had to wear the mask. And I remember the nurse coming out and saying, calling her name. But where we were sitting, whatever way the nurse had like took the wheelchair, she reversed her into this room. Now, bearing in mind I hadn't been to that specific room, because the last time that they were there for the diagnosis in 2018, my brother was there. Yeah. So I remember kind of texting my brother and saying, we're going in now, like, if you can get in, try and get in, like, and whatever. And we went in, and I remember my mum distinctively sitting in that wheelchair looking at me from behind the mask with like her, she could talk with her eyes, like, you know, and she looked at me and she kind of just shook her head. I knew by her eyes, and I was like, no, it'll be fine. And she was like looking at me, like shaking her head, like, no, this is not good. So anyways, I'm texting my brother going, like, Mum's making a face at me here, I'm a bit nervous, like, you know. My brother would have been very, and still is very, like, nearly like a second parent, you know. There's 11 years between us, like, I was always the baby, so he's always very protective, and still is. And so went in, and I remember the doctor sitting there, and I just remember the look on his face, and I was like what's going on here? And they had the scans up on the screen, and I remember just going into complete like I remember saying to the doctor, if you've got something, just say it. But I was also like, my brother's out in the car, like, if it's something really bad, like, let him come in. And he, like, the doctor knew us, and the doctor was like, look, COVID restrictions, we can't. So when we were sitting there, and he ended up just saying, look, it's gone right through our body, like, it's came back in the mouth, but they didn't catch it, and it went into her throat and right through her body. Like, I mean, this scan, you couldn't see, like, he was like, the roaring red is where the cancer was, and you couldn't see anything but red. And I remember sitting there, and she just looked at the doctor and said, how long have I got? And I remember like tipping her on, obviously not hitting her, but tipping her on the leg, being like, stop, you know, just chemo, there's more treatment. Like, I was completely like, my mum was invincible, like, she was going to get through this. And he was like, we don't like giving timelines. He was like, but I'd say 3 to 6 months. And I remember just, it was like the whole world just stopped. And I was just like, what? But it was very strange how it all happened, because it was like my brother just entered through the door just after he'd said it. And from there it just completely went downhill, you know.
And did she do more treatment after that?
She didn't get around to it. So
Wow.
within 72 hours of that appointment, my mum actually passed away. So on the Monday night, yeah, she passed away.
So you go home from there.
Yeah. And we're just all, family obviously start coming up and everyone's completely...
And she was at home.
She came home on the Friday, yeah. She was always very pushing on, you know, if anything's going to happen to me, it
I
wanted
want
to be at home. You know, she was very, like the house that I'm currently living in at the moment was my mum's family home. So my nanny and granddad.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, the family home of them all. And she was like, oh, I want to be at home. And I was like, of course, obviously.
Yeah.
But like in my head, I was thinking 3 to 6 months. They're saying 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about that right now,
Yeah.
you know? And we got home and I remember like all the family started coming up, our brothers and sisters and everything else. And I remember just like, I was in complete just... Like it wasn't happening. Like my
Yeah.
dad was planning her 60th because she was going 60 at the end of that year, and he was like, right, we need to get like, it was obviously COVID restrictions, we need to
Yeah.
get a marquee put out the back, like we need to get like all this, you know, my cousin Martin actually runs a event planning business, so he was on the phone to him going, come on, like we need to get X, Y and Z sorted, and I'm going, they said 3 to 6 months. I just kept saying they said 3 to 6 months. I had that in my head. I was like, I've at least, like in my head, 3 to 6 months. And yeah, she went home and she, like, the family ended up leaving and she wanted a bit of space. And that Friday night, we went to bed normal. And then on Saturday morning, then she was still complaining of her legs. And I remember my brother saying, look, we need to call a doctor out on call because she obviously wants to be kept at home, just to check her and see kind of what's what. So the doctor came out, and he had said there was like a blood clot in her leg, and that she would have to go back into the hospital and just see could they do some sort of procedure on it. So we were thinking, right, that's fine. You know, brought her into the hospital. Sorry, before we brought her into the hospital, actually, this will show you her strength. That Saturday morning, she was in the bed, and again, her legs really, like, I don't know what a blood clot feels like, but I can only imagine the way she was screaming in pain. It wasn't nice. And my little nephew TJ, my brother's son, he's now 9. He turned 9 there actually last week. He was only 4 at the time, but him and my mum were like inseparable. Like when this child came along, my mum and dad just turned into like, oh my
First
god, yeah, it's making me emotional even thinking about it. Like, you know, this little kid was the most special thing in the world, and she was lying in that bed in pain, and my brother actually said, look, TJ wants to come around to see you. And I can't remember what way it happened, but he was like, I'm going to explain to him, like, you know, you're not too well or whatever. My mum was like, no. Mum was like, no, I'm getting up, I'm going downstairs to bring him around. And I was like, Mum, like, you're in bed. And she was like, don't care, don't care. I'm getting up out of bed, I'm going downstairs, like, we're going to keep it as normal for him as possible. She just didn't want him to see her in any way, shape or form, like, not his nanny, you know. So she went down the stairs, and they'd normally play like tea sets together, and like he'd be making her a cup of tea in his little tea set and stuff, and she sat there playing cards, playing tea sets, playing everything with her, with him in the pain. And I remember just being in shock, just being like,
it's almost like she knew.
I look back now and I realise I think she did know. I think she knew a lot more probably than we even knew. You know your own body, you know. And yeah, I remember then she went into the hospital after that. That would have been probably the last time TJ ever seen her. And I remember when she was leaving to actually go, my little, well, it was her little dog Molly, little dachshund. We still have her now. She's 13. My mum's baby. Like, my mum would have sold any of us for this dog, you know. And I remember she stood at the door and she rubbed Molly on the head and she said, I'll see you soon, or I'll see you. Yeah, I'll see you soon, something like that. But it wasn't the way she normally would say it. She'd be like, I'll be back in a while or whatever. She talked to the dog like it was human, you know. And the way she said it and the look in her eyes, and I went, no, like, you're going to be back probably in and out today because of COVID restrictions in there, like, you'll be fine. And we went anyways, and we got into the hospital, and it's like it just went downhill from there. Like, she was in A&E for the whole Saturday, and they only would let one person in, so me and my brother were doing shifts. My mum's whole family gathered around the A&E. My dad, my brother, me, they all gathered around the A&E before she went in, and she had one of her smokes, you know, one of my aunties, and she went in, and she was lying in the hospital bed for what felt like days, you know. And we were saying, like, are you going to give her a bed? Like, what? Like, are you going to do the procedure? Is she going home? Like, what's actually happening here? We were obviously still in shock from the Friday being told what we were told, and then to be back in the same hospital. So they eventually that night got out of bed, and thinking back on it as well, before she actually went up into the ward, she tried to sneak out for a smoke. And I remember my brother actually giving out to her, being like, "Ma, you can't. And I was like, I think I sent my brother out to the car for something, and I said, "Ma, come on quickly, get in the wheelchair and we'll," you know, because I knew, I was like, one more smoke is not going to change anything for her now, you know. So yeah, from there then on the Sunday, cause restrictions and COVID numbers were so high, they wouldn't let us back in to the hospital at all on the Sunday. And I was saying, like, you know, she's very independent, she's very kind of private, she wouldn't want nurses helping her and stuff, like she had to have a shower and like that.
Yeah.
I was like, you need to let me in, like even just for an hour, just to make sure she's okay. And they wouldn't let us in. And then on the Monday then we got a call Monday morning. My brother actually, the phone rang, and the nurse on the phone actually said, look, we can't do the procedure on your mum's leg, like she's too weak. And we were like, right, okay, like, well, what does this mean then? And they were like, you're gonna have to come up. She's getting weaker as time is going on, and I'd say she's only gonna last a week. And I was like, how did we go from that to this, you know?
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. And I remember going up into the hospital that day. I actually ended up running out in complete shock. Because we walked in, and I remember her sitting there, and it was like obviously a lot of medication they had put her on, and because we hadn't seen her on the Sunday, it wasn't the same person sitting there in that bed as what I had left her on Saturday night. And I remember, like, a fairly calm person when it comes to hospitals, and like doctors have very much respect for them all, but I remember kind of just nearly losing my head, kind of going frustration, kind of going, that's not my mom that's sitting there. Like, you know, if anyone knew her, it was me. That's not my mom. Like, what did you do in 24 hours that is after causing her to get like this? She was fine on Saturday night when we left. Not fine, but you know, she was my mum. And I remember just leaving I ran out of the hospital, literally ran, and I was like, I couldn't even be there. You know, it was awful. And then again, we'd arranged ambulances to bring her home on the Tuesday. I had my aunties, my dad's two sisters, Jackie and Marie, very close to my mum. They were back at the house, kind of organising the room and making sure everything was set up and ready to go for her on the Tuesday. And like, it was just kind of in complete shock. Like, how did we
get to this point?
You know, it's all I kept saying was how. And yeah, I from there, that would have been, I'd say, Monday afternoon, early afternoon. I ended up actually ringing my cousin Martin. He's a very good person in crisis. He's like very calm, very good person to have around a crisis. And I remember ringing him going, just get me out of here. Just get me out of here. And we ended up going to the McDonald's around the corner. And I remember he turned around to me after we had a long conversation, and he said to me, I said, I want to go home. And he was like, I'm sorry, Jen. He was like, I can't bring you home. And I was like, what? Like, bring me home? Like, you're someone I trust, bring me home. And he was like, I don't know, I haven't got a call, I haven't got a text or anything. It was just something in me that's telling me we need to go back into the hospital. And thank God that he did, because I literally got, I'd say, 2-3 hours maybe with her on my own. And I just literally rang my aunties, again, Jackie and Marie, to come up, because I didn't want to leave her on her own, but I wanted to go back to the house and make sure everything was set, because very particular, like, I wanted her room to be set up and ready to go, that she felt comfortable when she came home. And they literally were like, yeah, go and do what you need to do, you know. And I literally only left the hospital. I got into my house, took my shoes off, sat down, and the same cousin, my cousin Martin, was on the phone to me going, you've got 0.3 seconds to get out of the house. And I was like, what? And he was like, he was only to go into the shop, and he was like, get out of the house, come on. And literally, he's very slow driver. Like, we'd always slag him, like, over how slow this man drives, and I've never seen him put the foot down as fast as what he did. We've ran like something of a movie in the hospital, through them corridors, and I literally got to the end of the stairs, and it was like I just whacked into my brother, because he was coming down to the stairs as I was running, and I just missed her passing. But I do believe at the time that's what I think she wanted it, because I was, after literally holding her hand and telling her I was leaving, I was going home, and that I was going to sort out the room, and she was still aware of kind of what was, you know. And yeah, just I remember just being devastated. And my auntie, still to this day, Marie, she was saying to me like she just went to sleep. Like we didn't even know.
Yeah.
We couldn't, only for the machines and stuff. Like we didn't even know she was gone. You know, she went that peacefully. That's the way she would have wanted it. She was very like that. She just wouldn't have wanted to know. Wouldn't have wanted to be in that pain. Like when I went up to her that day, like whatever pain relief she was on, she was trying to take like the things out of her arms and stuff to go home, and it scared me because it's like that's not my mum. She's not that type of person.
Do you think if COVID hadn't happened?
I strongly believe if COVID hadn't happened, she'd probably be still here with us now.
Yeah.
I do. I really do.
Did you feel angry about that afterwards? Do you still feel angry?
I'm still very angry. I still feel like a lot of time was taken from us. Like we were pushing and pushing and pushing for scans and stuff to be done. And obviously COVID, there's nothing you can do. Obviously, like everywhere shut down. But I just feel like if there had been maybe more resources,
she'd got even more time.
Exactly. You know, and how it even happened, like in the hospital, we found out actually afterwards they had put her on the pump and we didn't even know. Like, because I remember saying to my brother, like, did you just give permission? And they were like, my brother was like, no, like, because we went to see the doctors after a couple of weeks after, and I was saying, you know, why weren't we aware of this? Like, we should have given permission to, you know, and obviously if they had said to us, you know, she needed to go on the pump or whatever, you're not going to turn around and say, obviously, no, you're not.
No, but it would have given you more of an indication that this was the way it was definitely going.
Like, not to just leave the hospital and then return and she's gone. You know, it's like, it's still, I think it still baffles me how it happened. Like,
there's also huge trauma in that as well.
Completely. Like, now every time a hospital or a doctor comes about, especially between my dad and my mum now, I'm like hyper vigilant about it, you know, nearly asking 50 million questions because it's like, I can't go through that again, you know.
Your dad stepped in and looked after you and took over your mum's role in one way. He'd been sick a lot during his life. It was an ear issue.
So he suffered with his ears from a young kid, but he also had it was like a type of cancer, I think, on his lung, and he had to get like top of his lung removed. I was only in primary school. I would have been only about 9 or 10. Again, very sheltered. I only learned this in recent years. Very sheltered from it all. My brother kind of kept, and my mum kept me very sheltered, which looking back now, I'm kind of glad, because if I had probably more aware, I'd probably be more, I suppose, again, hyper vigilant about the whole thing, you know. And he was quite sick, but like hospitals didn't bother my dad. Like we used to always call him a hypochondriac because he would literally, for anything, he would have the doctor on speed dial, you know. But he was quite sick on and off, like, and then he'd have a good run of things, and then like if you heard of my dad getting an operation, you wouldn't really bat too much of an eyelid because you're kind of going, it's a cat and iron lives, like what's going to happen to him, you know. Until obviously, unfortunately, it did. But
so he went back with the issue with his ears, and they discovered he'd cancer.
So he had an operation in 2013 for his ear, and they had said, I think it was like 10 years from then, you had to get it done again. And he'd been suffering with dizzy spells and that kind of thing. And in 2023, they done the same operation on his ear, and then they found the cancer. And they said it was going into the lining of his brain. But they, again, same hospital, probably same team of doctors saying, no, radiation will do it. No, we'll be fine. Everything's grand. Obviously, what happened to my mum, we were kind of skeptical. We were like, because it's on the brain, like, will it work? And I remember you went through again weeks and weeks and weeks of radiation, same thing. And it was like the roles had been reversed because he was helping us bring my mum to like my mum and dad weren't together. But they were best of friends. Like, they were better off not together, you know. But my dad would have done anything for him, absolutely anything for my mum, and especially when she got sick, you know. And
he must have fought more for you, knowing what you'd just been through as well.
Yeah, again, trying to shelter me, you know. And I was obviously at an age where I could kind of go, well, no, I'm after being through this. I'm not oblivious to what's actually going on around me now. You know, but even looking back now, I was in denial of my dad completely. Like, again, invincible. He was a cat with 9 lives. He would get through this, you know. And even the radiation and stuff, like, he was saying to me, I was working full time at the time, and he was saying, no, like, you keep going working, he was saying with my brother, like, he'll bring me to whatever appointments I need. I just want you working. I don't want you, because I suppose it was trauma for him after looking at what I went through with my mum, you know, and he didn't want me going through that again. You know, he wanted me just keep working and just keep my head on my shoulders. And because I'd suffered after my mum with quite a lot of mental health issues like depression and anxiety and stuff, you know, and when he seen me go back working full time, he was like, this is brilliant. I don't want anything stopping you from doing this. And yeah, the radiation for weeks and weeks and weeks, he was in there doing all that. And then
for you, in sort of that first year of a blur and the shock and the almost PTSD, do you know what I mean?
PTSD completely,
of losing your mum like that so suddenly, and the trauma that goes with that, that you don't really realise till, I don't think sometimes till a couple of years afterwards, it's suddenly you go, you know, oh,
what just happened? Yeah. I think I'm kind of in that space, like in the last year, I'm in that space of just, wow, this is after. It was like I was just going and going and going and going through it all, working everything, and then it was like in the last year it just hit me like a ton of bricks, you know. And I'm still healing. Obviously, I don't think you really ever you learn to get through the hurdle of grief, I suppose, but you don't ever get over the person. No. You don't ever get, you know.
But I don't think you want to either.
No, you never do.
Because you want to hold them. Would you, your cousin Julianne, in the middle of your mum and dad, now she was your dad's cousin, but she was like a sister to you.
She literally, I grew up with her like a sister to me. She was like a sister, an auntie, a cousin, and a best friend. She was an all round, like all in one kind of thing. And yeah, we would have been very close. We actually got close. She had a little boy, Frankie. I idolise the ground Frankie walks on. She had him back, it was a couple of months after her mum had passed away. It was back in 2013, so Frankie's 13 years old now. And he, like, from a baby, she was trying to do a lot of it on her own. Not on her own, she had family around her, but like for babysitting and stuff like that, she was trying to go to work and stuff. So I actually stepped in. I was 16, I stepped in to help her. And that just, we were always kind of close on and off growing up, but this just spiraled into like complete sister relationship, you know. Yeah, I mean, for the whole lot of, Frankie was 10 when she passed away, just gone 10. So for 10 years, like constantly, like at one point I was nearly moved in with her, you know, like when she wanted to go to work, whatever, like I'd be there, my dad would help out, my mum would help out. Yeah, we were just, again, inseparable. And after my mum passed away, especially, we were like, again, I didn't think we could get any closer, but she was always the one on the other end of the phone. She was always the one on the other end of the phone for everyone, really. She had a big heart, really big heart, and she was always, if you asked anyone you met now, they'd say she was always the one you could pick up the phone to and talk to, and she'd sit, she'd listen to your problems, and she'd, you know, she'd take everything on board, but she'd probably nearly never talk about her own issues, you know. So that was in the middle, I suppose, of everything with my dad. And I think my dad was a big, like, him getting cancer, she took really, really, really hard. I remember ringing her on the phone to tell her, you know, he got the results, and I was like, come up to the house, and she came in and she sat down, and I remember telling her, but she wasn't one for crying in front of you. Like, she'd always have a poker face. It'll be grand, it'll be fine, you know, he'll be alright, he'll get the treatment, and you know what he's like, he'll be grand. And I remember she broke down in tears, and I remember thinking to myself, this is not, but I didn't think too much of it, you know. And that was 2 months before she passed away. But yeah, we were
and she took her own life.
She did. Yeah, she did, so suddenly. Just, it's still
very raw.
Yeah, it still just shocks me every day when I, like, you still got to pick up the phone. I think there's a different type of grief when someone's sick and when someone goes suddenly. And I know that sounds probably really, like, not everyone's grief is different, but I definitely noticed a big change in the shock. Obviously my mum and dad passing away and my nanny passing away, such a shock, but you kind of knew they were sick. Whether it was years down the line, you knew at some point. But for someone, like, I was literally one of the last people to speak to her, to be talking to her. Because you talked
on the phone the night before. We
were texting on the phone the night before, due to meet up the next day for a cup of tea. I'd always go down to her house for a cup of tea, and she was actually giving out to me Funnily enough, saying she hadn't seen me in a couple of days or whatever, and she was like, you know, for God's sake, like, you've been working too much, like, you know, and pop down to me and have a cup of tea. But I actually had a half day the following day in work, and I was like, right, I'm gonna go do what I need to do tomorrow, and I'll be down to you. She's perfect. I'll put the kettle on. That was always our thing for a cup of tea. And she'd been on the phone to my dad a couple of hours previous to that, and she wasn't feeling too well, and my dad was saying to her, again, love the doctors and the hospitals, you know, you need to get to the doctor, I'll bring you down myself, you know, and no, I'll be grand. And then I think it was around 1 o'clock, I remember having a massive migraine. We never usually would text, we'd always ring. So if we were texting back and forth, especially that late at night, she'd pick up the phone or I'd pick up the phone. And I actually said to her, I was like, Joe, I've got a massive migraine right now. I was like, normally I'd ring you, but I'm just going to go sleep and we'll catch up tomorrow. She was like, no problem. And the last thing she said in the message, sorry, it was night love you, sorry. And she'd never say night, she'd always say night, N-I, night love you. And I remember, night love you too, talk to you tomorrow. And I literally, what felt like, put the phone down on the locker. I turned over and went, you know, when you have a massive migraine, all you want to do is shut your eyes. I turned over, went to sleep, and it felt like a herd of elephants were running up the stairs at some hour in the morning. I remember thinking I was in a nightmare. I was also thinking my dad was going through radiation at the time, and I was thinking, this is something after, because it's the trauma from my mum, it's like something's after happening. And my auntie Marie, my cousin Michaela, and my brother Tony actually came into the room, and I remember just one eye open going, what is it dad, like, what's going on? And my auntie actually said, I remember she rubbed my hand, she was like, are you awake? And I was like, yeah, like, just tell me, like, what's going on? And she was like, it's Julianne. I was like, what? She's like, it's Julianne. So I, obviously waking up thinking hospital or something, you know, and she was like, Jen, it's like, she's gone. And I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, she's gone. And I remember being like, gone where? You know, like, what? What are you, never, like, what? She's gone. She's gone. She's dead. She's gone. She's after taking her on. She's gone. And I remember being like, what? Like, and I don't fully remember this. I've been told from one of my cousins that I actually vaguely remember I got up out of the bed and I was due to go to do a half day in work, to go check on an event, and I remember getting up out of bed, laughing at them all, going, surely not, and I was like, we just give over, this is not laughing, just don't mess with something like that, you know. And I went and got ready, and I was getting into my car to go to work, and my cousin actually ended up having to come with me, and I went off to check on the event, and my cousin was actually like, you're not okay, like, do you understand what's happening? And I remember being like, no, like, these are all lying. And it was actually when I had done what, maybe it was on my head, I needed to go and do this stuff before I could register, maybe, I don't know, but I remember being there and I remember just looking outside the car going, oh my God, like, this is not fake, like, this is, and they were like, Michaela was like, yeah, like, what are you doing? Just obviously adrenaline shock, completely in disbelief,
overdrive.
Completely, this did not happen, you know. And I remember then having to ring the job and be like, look, this is after happening, and I at the minute don't know my left and my right, you know. And I was like, I'll be in touch, I don't, like, just can you get me cover for the day or whatever, for the half day I was in. And they were like, perfect, no problem, go do what you need to do. And it was actually only when I got down, so my dad got back from radiation. I was driving, I don't even know how I was driving my car, like, completely just autopilot. And I went back to my auntie's, and my dad met me there. And I remember when my dad walked in the door, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he just put his arms around me. Now, the poor man only had to come in our radiation. He was had to get in that call before he had to go into the radiation. So obviously that was a shock for him, you know. And he just put his arm around me, and he was like, the two of us, where Julianne was concerned, my dad was the eldest cousin of them, and she was one of the youngest. But he was always very protective of her. He was always like an older brother. And the relationship that we had with Julianne, like, the three of us were close, if that makes sense. And then we had Frankie in the mix of that. So, like, anytime Julianne needed something, it would be my dad, she would ring, you know. And I remember him standing there and just putting his arms around me, being like, right, we need to go down, they're all looking for us, we need to face it. And then we're driving down to the house, and I walked in, people everywhere. And like in my head I was thinking I should be here for a cup of tea to, you know, have a chat with her. Like, how is this actually happening? And it was actually her sister Anne, one of my other cousins, that was standing at the door. And it was when she put her arms around me and I was in the house and I just fell to pieces. And it was like, it just hit like a ton of bricks. Like, then straight away my thoughts went, Frankie, where is he?
And how is he?
He's doing better. He is doing better. I think obviously being 10 years old, and he, like, I was doing my best to try and shelter him from it. You know, but he's 10. He was 10 at the time. He's a boy. He wants to know what's after happening, you know. And he was actually in the house, unfortunately, when it was all happening. I don't believe that she would have wanted to put him in that position. I think her mind just might have just snapped. I don't think, like, people say, oh, she planned it. I don't think she did. I think it was genuinely just her mind just went, and that was that, you know. And he's doing a lot better. Like, he graduated from primary school there a few weeks ago. He had his confirmation, and obviously them milestones are really hard, you know, because there was times where the two of us would be talking about when he's a baby, you know, growing up into that kind of, like, his communion was the year before she died, and we were saying, geez, it won't be long for his confirmation. So to have him at his confirmation and have like a pin, and for her not to be there, like, literally she was there in representation of a pin, and it was just like, it was awful. It was awful to see him going through that. But he's really is. I don't know whether he's just putting a brave face on, you know, but he does. He talks about her, like, she loved the colour green. She was always like, you know, for Patrick's Day, and she had this little leprechaun teddy bear. She called it Larry. So our friends used to call her Larry, like, for the laugh and stuff. But on his special days, he'll wear this certain green top, and you'll know that's he might not say it, but that's his way of kind of, you know, communicating how he feels. So
You've been through so much. Do you feel hopeful? Do you feel, or are you even at that point yet?
Being honest, now I do. I feel a bit more hopeful than probably what I did maybe a year ago. I think to get through, I just think, what would they want? You know, and if they were here, like, my dad was the very one actually, when my mum passed away, he'd be pointing the finger at me and saying, now if that never happens to me, which we never thought was going to happen, you know, I don't want you sitting around, like, you know, crying about me, like, you know, I'm gone, I'm looking over you, you know, you need to get on with your life. And I remember sitting in the sitting room that Pacific day and saying to him, Dad, it's not that easy, you know, it's not. And he's like, I know. He's like, but he's like, I'll be more worried about you if you're not getting on with your life and doing what you need to do. And I think that's probably why, even, like, I think it was 3 weeks after my dad died, I went back to work, and I was trying to work through, like, his sickness. He was in the hospice and stuff, and I was trying to work through all that. And I think it was more to keep him sane. It was more for him to see me kind of go, she's keeping going with this, she's doing well. And I think that's, like, this time last year, it just hit me. It just really hit me. But in the last year, I feel a lot more stronger. I feel a lot more aware, I suppose, mental health wise. Like, it does take a toll. It does. Like, my anxiety would be probably a lot more worse than what it would have been, say, 6 or 7 years ago. But I just try and, like, even if it's just a matter of getting up out of bed every day and just making the bed, or going for a walk, or, you know, like, stuff like that, really helps. I feel a bit more hopeful for the future now that I suppose I've had that kind of time to, again, you don't really heal, but to reflect and to take that time out and to remember them, and you never really forget, but just to try and, I don't know, get on with life, if that's it. Like, I hate saying that life goes on, but it does, and it might go on in different ways, like, in ways you never imagine, like,
every day at a time. Literally,
my dad used to always say that, one day at a time. That was one of his favourite songs, one day at a time. My mum used to always say everything works out in the end, and that's two, like, sayings that will repeat in my head. When I'm having a really bad day, I'll go, you know, I might just sit into their photos or whatever and kind of be in the sitting room going, one day at a time, or it'll always work out in the end. And just kind of believing that and having that hope that, you know, they went through what they went through and I'm here because of them, if that makes sense. And just to one day at a time and just keep going, you know. It's all you can do. And I'm very grateful for the family I have around me are phenomenal. Like my dad's sister Maria especially, I can't even put into words the support, the type of person that she is. It's just like she promised my mum and dad that she'd always have me back and she'd always look at, and I tell you, she's not once let them down. My boyfriend Rowan, unbelievable. Like he came into my life 6 months before my dad passed, and since he's just been so much support. I don't think I'd be getting through every day half the time if I didn't have him by my side. You know, he's just it's a lot to do with support around you. If you don't have the support of people around you that kind of get it as well, like they've all been through it. Like for instance, my brother, he's also lost his parents, you know, and that's one thing I always remind him of. I'm always like, no one gets the grief we're both going through like each other. Like, you know, like aunties, cousins, uncles, they might understand it, but they understand it from a sibling perspective. Yeah. He gets it because it was his mum and dad. I get it because it was my mum and dad, and the two of us get it because we're brother and sister. If that makes sense. Yeah, like that's what I was trying to say when we're having bad days. I'm like, you know, we'll get through and we'll get through it together. And we always did and we always will. And that was one thing my mum and dad always kind of said to us, we only have each other. And I never thought it'd be a case that it would be that we only do have each other, you know. So
Jenny, you're incredibly brave.
Thank
you so much for coming in, and your mum and dad be very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Grief Pod with Venetia Quick. You can listen on SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts. We also have an online community on Facebook, The Grief Pod, or on Instagram @GriefPod Series.